Hello viewers, you are welcome once again to Ogundiji class. I am Adebi Abiola Temitayo, your teacher for today. We are having mathematics, and the topic before us today is quadratic equation. Looking at it very well, in our day-to-day life, quadratic equations are applicable at every point of our life. Let's take, for instance, here is a football player playing the ball from one point over to the other side. Here is an arc over a river. Please take note of the shapes. Again, here is a set of arc over a river. Take a look at this. Here's another arc. And what of water fountain? What a beautiful architectural design. All these are parts of areas in our daily life in which quadratic equation is applicable. Now, let's check the areas vividly. Number one, in football, quadratic equation is applicable. In architectural designs, quadratic equation is useful. In building construction, in military wars, when a missile is thrown from one side to another side. Even in tailoring, when the neck of a dress is to be cut, the knowledge of quadratic equation is very important. Let us look at industrial designs. For designing various materials that are used at home and in every other places. What about all household materials? Your plates, your tins, and so many others. Let's go through a video in which we are going to check through how this quadratic equation is applicable. Now let's go. We can see quadratic function in the real world. Follow me vividly. Usually, the graph of a quadratic equation is parabola in nature. That is, it curves upwards or downwards. Here is an ice. This is a river view. We can see the shape. Here is a rainbow. What of this arc? I hope we are taking note of the shape. Each of these shapes are parabola in nature. This is a crane, and what of water fountain? This is a firework. At every instances in our real world, it is applicable. When you throw an object from one point to another, it will definitely have a starting point and there will be an end point. And these objects take a parabola shape at all points. This is a basketball game in play. And what of a football? Now, of what importance do we have this quadratic equation? Always, we can use it to analyze or to check what is the height, the maximum height an object can reach. Also, we can know how far from the starting point to the end point where the object will hit the ground. We can also know how long was the object in the air, and so many more. In all this, we have a general form of quadratic equation. It shows that a quadratic equation is such equation in which the highest power of the variable x is 2. That is, x raised to power 2. In this general form, we have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now let's take a look at this. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 is an equation. Whereas we have ax squared plus bx plus c as an expression of a quadratic formula. Now, looking at it very well, this is an equation because the three terms equals 0. In this place, we are just having our expression as ax squared plus bx plus c. Now let's continue. With an example that y equals 5x squared plus 2x plus 1. Your a equals 5, your b equals 2, and your 1, and your c equals 1. Let's take another one. At this point, there seems to be no value in front of x. In actual sense, the value is 1. The value in front of x is minus 6, and c is 11. Looking at it very well, it can as well be stated that a quadratic equation is of the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where the y represents the dependent variable and x the independent variable, which implies that the value of y is determined by what x is at any point. Looking at the quadratic function y equals x squared minus 6x plus 11. With this, we have x squared minus 6x plus 11 equals 0. With this quadratic equation, the value of your a is what? Correct, 1. The value of your b equals minus 6. The value of your c equals 11. Correct. Let's now move on to see some good examples of a quadratic equation. The first one, x squared plus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Number 2, x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Number 3, 3x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. 4, x squared plus x minus 20 equals 0. 5, x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. 6, 2x squared plus 5x minus 24 equals 0. Taking note of this very well, you will discover that there are various patterns that the quadratic equation takes. The 4 major patterns that a quadratic equation can take are as follows. We have 2x squared plus 5x minus 6 equals 0. In this, we have different signs. The positive sign coming first and the negative sign coming second. X minus x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. At this point, the two signs are negative. 5x squared plus 11x minus 3 equals 0. This pattern is same as this. Now let's take the third pattern, that 3x squared minus 3x plus 4 equals 0. This is another pattern in which the negative comes before the positive. And the fourth pattern, 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals 0. With this, the two signs are positive. Let's continue. The numbers we have before the x squared and x are usually called coefficients. What do I call it? Coefficients. And sometimes the number before the x squared can be 1 or greater than 1. At the same time, the coefficient of s can also take 1 or can be more than 1. And there are various methods of solving quadratic equation. In solving quadratic equation, for a particular quadratic equation, there are 4 methods that can be used. The first one, the factorization method. What do I call it? Factorization method. Good. The second one, quadratic formula. Again, quadratic formula. The third one, completing the square. Repeat after me. Good. Completing the square. And the last one, the graphical method. In all these 4 methods, if you use all the 4 methods to solve just one equation, you will always get the same answers. Now, let's take one of the methods now, which is factorization. Factorization of quadratic equation. In factorizing quadratic equation, there are 3 major steps. Following the 3 major steps will help you to get to the required result. It will help you to provide the right solution to the quadratic equation. Let's take the first equation I have here. X squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. X squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. In solving this, what is the first step? You consider your constant 6 and you list the factors of 6, which are 1, 2, 3, and 6. How then do you combine any 2 to ensure that you get minus 6? Let's take a look at it. We have 1 multiplied by 6, 2 multiplied by 3. What then is the next thing? The next step, which is the second step, is how do you add two of the factors together to get a negative 1? Let's have addition here and addition here. The sum gives us plus 7. Let's take a look at this. You have addition here, you have addition here. It gives you a sum of plus 5, which is not the same as -1. You go further to say, okay, what if I have -2 and -3? It will give me -5. Also, I can have -1 and -6. And so I have -7. Yet, I couldn't get to -1. I'll move further to consider a situation where you have the positive before the negative. Then you have +1, -6. Now I've given me -5. I have +2 and -3. And that will have given me -1. And this seems to be the perfect example that we need. Your x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. We have this number to be our correct answer. Therefore, you split these 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, to become 4 by using these 2 factors that give us the most correct answer. Then we are going to have x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 6 equals 0. The next step is to replace minus x with plus 2x minus 3x. So we have x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 6 equals 0. The next thing is for you to regroup. In regrouping, we have these first 2 terms together and these last 2 terms together. Now you have x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 6 equals 0. If you have your work like this, just bringing this 3x minus 6 down here will have made your answer to be wrong. This negative will have an effect on this to make it positive. Now, from here now, we factorize. What is common to this? We have x common. X squared divided by x, we have x left. Plus 2x divided by x, we have 2. Here we have our negative. To the 2 of them, 3 is common. We have 3. Divide 3x by 3, we are left with x. Plus, at this point, you have 6 divided by 3. That gives us 2 equals to 0. With this, we have the bracket here and here to be the same. And therefore, we pick one of the 2, which is x plus 2, and we combine the x with minus 3. And so we have x minus 3 equals 0. Then from there, we have x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. In finding the solution, then we collect the like terms. Collect the like terms. Therefore, you have your 2 Moving to the other side, to mean 0, we have x equals 0 minus 2, or x equals 0 plus 3. Hence, you have x equals minus 2, or x equals 3. Therefore, your x equals minus 2 or 3, which is the solution to our quadratic equation. Let's go on break. When we come back, we'll continue from there. Welcome back. Now let's take a look at another example here, in which the x squared, the coefficient is more than 1. We have 4x squared minus 11x plus 6 equals 0. At this point, we cannot go on directly like we did in the first one. Why? This is because the value of coefficient of x squared is more than 1. At this point, you need to multiply the first term, which is 4x squared, with the third term, which is 6, the constant. And that gives us plus 24x squared. Now, we are going to replace the minus 11x with 2 factors of 24. Consider the factors of 24, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8. The most efficient one that will give you minus 11 is minus 3 minus 8. And so we replace the minus 11x with minus 8x minus 3x. And regrouping here, we have 4x squared minus 8x minus your bracket of 3x plus minus 6 equals to 0. Following from there, we factorize. In this first bracket, 4x is common. Therefore, you divide your 4x squared by 4x, you have x. And you divide your 8x by 4x, you have 2. Coming to the second side, divide your 3. 3 is common to the 2 terms. Dividing your 3x by 3, you have x left. And dividing your 6 by 3, you have minus 2. Therefore, we have 2 brackets. You combine your 4x with your minus 3, and you pick one of x minus 2. And that will make us to have equals 0. And then, from here, you have 4x minus 3 equals 0, or your x minus 2 equals 0. You collect the like terms. In collecting the like terms, you have 4x equals 3, or your x equals 2. At this point, we cannot have our 4x like that. We have to divide by the coefficient of x, which is 4. Then you divide 4x by 4, you have x left. And then you have 3 divided by 4. And the value here is x equals 2. And finally, you have your answer to be x equals 3 over 4 or 2, which is the solution to that quadratic equation. And finally, I want to leave you with this. The first step is you list the pair of the factor of c, which is your constant. The second step is to find a pair that will give the sum of b. And finally, you use the pair to fully factorize your quadratic equation. I want to believe with this, you have a good understanding of the factorization method. When I come your way next time, we'll continue with other methods. I am Adebi Abiola.